Welcome to my channel Sella Buzz. There comes a time when even the biggest stars in Hollywood change so much that everyone stops and asks what's happening. Johnny Depp, one of the most famous actors we know, is going through that exact moment. The man who once made us smile as Captain Jack Sparrow, who made us laugh with his funny version of Willy Wonka, and who became known as one of the best actors ever, has changed so much that millions of fans are wondering what's happening to him. It's not just something small. His change has been slow and easy to see, and it has become part of what people talk about when they think about his life. People see him at concerts with his band, at courts during his legal fights, at movie openings, and they can't help but notice he doesn't look like the Johnny they once knew. Sometimes skinnier, sometimes pale, sometimes looking like he's carrying heavy problems on his shoulders. And in our fast world of social media, where every picture, every video, and every rumor spreads super fast, how he looks has made people guess, ask questions, and argue. But before we get too excited, let's step back and remember who we're talking about. Johnny Depp isn't just another famous person. He's someone who has been in the spotlight for many years. From his first big role on 21 Jump Street to his amazing characters in Edward Scissorhands, Sleepy Hollow, Pirates of the Caribbean, and so many more, Depp has lived most of his grown-up life with cameras watching everything he does. He has been photographed, interviewed, chased, and sometimes even attacked by the media. Imagine what it means to live that way for over 30 years. Imagine the pressure of never being able to just be yourself in public, without someone turning your look or your mood into a news story. It's no surprise, then, that over time that pressure shows. Fans who have followed Johnny from the beginning notice the differences more than anyone else. They see the thinner body, the tired eyes, the sometimes messy look, and they start asking the obvious questions. Is he sick? Is he stressed? Has his lifestyle finally caught up to him? And while those are normal questions to ask, they're not always fair. Because here's the truth. Johnny Depp is human. And just like the rest of us, he gets older. He struggles and he changes. He's now in his 60s. Time changes all of us. Wrinkles show up. Hair gets thin. Our bodies react differently to the wear and tear of everyday life. Now imagine adding many years of sleepless nights, long filming schedules, traveling the world as a musician, and the constant emotional drain of being watched all the time. That would change anyone, no matter how famous or good-looking they once were. Getting older is normal, but when you're Johnny Depp, getting older becomes a public event. Every wrinkle, every haircut, every change in weight becomes something people guess about. And that can't be easy. But here's something that makes Johnny's story even more special. Unlike many actors who slow down with age, he hasn't really stopped performing. He has always said that he feels most at home when he's creating, whether it's on a movie set or playing guitar with his band, Hollywood Vampires. That love for performing has kept him going, but it has also kept him in the cycle of late nights, constant travel, and the pressure to always do well. Think about it. Filming a big movie can take months of tiring work. Touring with a band can mean sleepless nights and constantly moving from city to city. Living both lives at the same time takes a toll that most of us can hardly imagine. And then, of course, there's the part of his change that can't be ignored. The public courtroom battles that defined the last few years of his life. Johnny's legal battles with his ex-wife became one of the most watched public trials in modern history. Millions of people around the world tuned in, breaking down every single moment. His words, his expressions, even the way he sat in that courtroom were studied endlessly. Imagine the stress of not only fighting for your reputation, but doing it while the entire world is watching and judging. That kind of stress doesn't go away when the trial ends. It leaves scars, emotional, mental, and physical. And yet what makes Johnny's story interesting isn't just that he went through these struggles. It's how he's choosing to respond to them. Because if you look closely, his change isn't just about being tired or stressed. It's also about reinvention. After Hollywood seemed to turn its back on him when studios didn't want to take risks putting him in big-budget projects, Johnny didn't disappear. He chose a different path. He chose to rebuild his career on his own terms. He went back to Europe away from the harsh judgment of Hollywood and worked on a French film called Jean du Barry. It wasn't a giant blockbuster. It wasn't a movie designed to break box office records, but it was a statement. It was Johnny showing the world that he could still command the screen, still bring depth and power to his roles, and still remind us why he was considered one of the greatest actors of his time. Critics in Europe praised his performance, calling it a strong step back into the world of cinema. And if you look at Hollywood history, you'll notice a pattern. Many stars who go through public scandals or setbacks reinvent themselves. Sometimes it's through a change in their appearance. Other times through a shift in the kinds of roles they take, or even how they carry themselves in interviews. Johnny's change could very well be part of that reinvention. Maybe the thinner body, the more serious behavior, the way he's stepping back from the blockbuster spotlight. It's all part of his effort to write a new chapter for himself. And let's not forget one of the most important parts of his journey, his fans. Despite all the ups and downs, Johnny Depp's supporters have stood by him with a loyalty that's almost unmatched. At his concerts, crowds cheer his name with the same energy they did 20 years ago. Online, fans defend him strongly, celebrating every small victory. In an industry where public opinion can shift overnight, the fact that Johnny still has such a dedicated base of supporters is amazing. That loyalty isn't just comforting, it's fuel. It gives him the strength to keep moving forward even when the road is tough. So when you put all of this together, Johnny Depp's change isn't really a mystery at all. It's the sum of everything he's lived through. The many years of fame, the endless tiredness of constant performing, the pain and embarrassment of public battles, and the sheer determination to reinvent himself again and again. It's aging, yes, but it's also strength. It's stress, yes, but it's also reinvention. It's the story of a man who refuses to fade away, even when the world tries to write him off. Think about that for a moment. For most people, aging happens quietly. We notice our hair turning gray in the mirror, or we feel our energy drop as the years go by. But it happens in private. Friends and family might see the changes, but the whole world isn't watching. For Johnny Depp, though, every small shift in appearance, every slight change in weight, every line on his face gets made bigger through cameras, gossip magazines, and social media. Millions of strangers, most of whom he'll never meet, break down those changes like detectives solving a mystery. And yet behind those changes is something far more ordinary and far more human. The natural toll of time, combined with an extraordinary life lived under pressure most of us can't imagine. Johnny Depp has been famous for nearly 4 decades. That means 4 decades of living under scrutiny, 4 decades of cameras flashing in his face, microphones pushed toward him, strangers guessing about his choices, 4 decades of playing characters that sometimes consumed him and left little space for Johnny, the man, to breathe. Fame on the surface looks glamorous. Red carpets, award shows, adoring fans, it all seems larger than life. But the cost of carrying that image day after day is steep. When you're expected to always be fascinating, always be cool, always be the rebel outsider that audiences adore, you end up wearing a mask, not just on set, but in your real life, and wearing that mask for years leaves scars. The tiredness of constant performing isn't just about acting in front of the camera. It's about living a life where you're always on, even at airports, even walking down the street, even just grabbing a cup of coffee. Johnny has never been just another man. He's a spectacle. People expect him to look interesting, act unusual, carry that aura of mystery. And while some celebrities thrive on that, others are drained by it. Johnny has often said he's a shy person at heart, uncomfortable with fame, happier disappearing into his characters than standing in the spotlight as himself. But in Hollywood, the spotlight isn't optional. It follows you whether you want it or not. Then layer on the personal battles. The courtroom dramas weren't just legal struggles. They were public trials of character. Imagine millions of strangers tuning in, breaking down your private messages, your facial expressions, your relationships, your choices. Imagine entire social media campaigns being built around your pain, where half the world cheers you on and the other half tears you down. That doesn't just affect your reputation. It affects your spirit. It ages you in ways no mirror can fully capture. Stress doesn't just live in the mind. It carves itself into the body. It shows up in tired eyes, in lines etched deeper by sleepless nights, in the posture of someone carrying too much for too long. But here's where Johnny's story shifts. Many people faced with that much scrutiny might step back. They might fade quietly into the background, retreat from the spotlight, and live out their lives in privacy. Johnny didn't do that. Instead, he chose reinvention. When Hollywood seemed to close its doors to him, he looked for other ones to open. When the industry doubted his future, he turned to Europe and to music, reconnecting with passions that didn't depend on the approval of the big studios. That reinvention is part of what makes his change so interesting. Reinvention is never easy. It requires letting go of old images, old expectations, old roles that defined you. For Depp, that meant no longer being the go-to star of billion-dollar blockbusters. It meant stepping away from the Jack Sparrow character that had become both a blessing and a burden. It meant proving himself again in smaller films, in foreign projects, and in the world of music where he wasn't the biggest name in the room. just another musician on stage with his band. That's humbling, and yet it's also freeing. Reinvention allows you to reclaim parts of yourself you might have lost. Johnny Depp's change, then, isn't just about looking older or looking tired. It's about carrying the marks of everything he's endured, and the choices he's making now. It's about the strength of someone who refuses to give up. Time and again, people have tried to write the final chapter of his story. They've said his career was over, his image destroyed, his place in Hollywood gone for good. And yet here he is, still acting, still performing, still making headlines. That strength is at the core of his change. If you look at the great figures in Hollywood history, many of them went through similar arcs. Marlon Brando, once the young rebel of a streetcar named Desire, later became heavier, more eccentric, more reclusive, but he never lost his brilliance. Robert Downey Jr., once written off as a lost cause, reinvented himself to become Iron Man and one of the most bankable stars in the world. Mickey Rourke, too, changed his appearance through years of battles, setbacks, and reinventions. Johnny Depp belongs to that lineage of artists who don't vanish quietly. They stumble, they fall, they get back up, and in getting back up, they change. What's powerful about Johnny's change is that it forces us to confront our own expectations of fame. We want our stars to stay frozen in time, to always look like the characters we first fell in love with. We want Jack Sparrow to still swagger across the deck, unchanged, as if 20 years haven't passed since his debut. But that's not reality. People change, stars age, and maybe the real magic of someone like Johnny Depp isn't that he can stay the same, but that he can keep evolving, keep reinventing himself, and keep finding ways to connect with audiences despite everything. And the truth is, fans are still with him. They cheer his name at concerts. They celebrate his performances in new films. They defend him fiercely online. That kind of loyalty doesn't come out of nowhere. It's built over decades of making people feel something. Johnny Depp made audiences laugh, cry, wonder, and dream. He gave people characters that became part of their lives. And in return, those fans are giving him something just as valuable: their loyalty through every high and low. That bond is what keeps him going. So when you look at Johnny Depp today, you don't just see a man who looks different than he did 20 years ago. You see a man who carries the history of his battles, the weight of his choices, the scars of his struggles, and the courage of his reinvention. You see strength carved into a human being who has been tested again and again. You see someone who refuses to fade quietly, who insists on writing his own story even when others try to end it. That's why his change is so compelling. It's not a mystery to be solved. It's a journey to be understood. It's the story of time, pressure, reinvention, and strength woven together. It's a reminder that behind the fame, behind the headlines, behind the gossip, there's a human being who has lived through extraordinary highs and devastating lows, and who is still standing. And in that, maybe Johnny Depp's change isn't just about him. Maybe it's a mirror for all of us, a reminder that we too will change, that we too will face battles, and that the real measure of a person isn't whether they stay the same, but whether they keep moving forward no matter what life throws their way. And now that leaves us with a question. How do we as fans, as viewers, interpret this change? Do we see it simply as the natural result of aging and pressure? Or do we see it as Johnny deliberately reshaping himself for his next chapter? Maybe it's both. Maybe it's life catching up with him, but also him deciding how to carry that weight in a way that feels authentic. Either way, what's clear is this: Johnny Depp's story isn't over. If anything, this change marks the beginning of something new. He's not just the same Jack Sparrow we once cheered for. He's not just the quirky Willy Wonka or the gothic Edward Scissorhands. He's something different now. Older, yes, but also wiser, more grounded, and perhaps more determined than ever to show the world that he still has more to give. And that's what makes his change so captivating. It isn't just about looks. It's about survival. It's about strength. It's about a man who has been knocked down more times than most of us could handle, and yet still finds a way to get back up. It's about the evolution of someone who has lived through the highest highs and the lowest lows, and who continues to move forward one step at a time. So now I'll leave it to you. When you look at Johnny Depp today, what do you see? Do you see a man who's simply worn down by years of fame and controversy? Or do you see a man in the middle of a bold reinvention ready to surprise us all once again? Whatever your answer, one thing's for sure. In Hollywood, the story never truly ends. It just transforms. And Johnny Depp, more than anyone else, he embodies that truth. His shocking change isn't the closing chapter. It's the beginning of a whole new,